Right here. Hey, welcome to the Board of Education and Business Committee meeting of Tuesday, October 24th. I respectfully acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional and ancestral lands of the Hulkaminum speaking people where we live, learn, and play. Adoption of the agenda. Trustee Schmidt. Adoption of the agenda. Trustee Lise, all in favor? Right. Minutes of the September 26, 2023 Board of Education and Business Committee meeting. Board of Education and Business Committee adopt the minutes. The September 26, 2023 Board of Education Business Committee meeting. Trustee Souza, all in favor? Okay, action list.
Chair, there's no action list.
No action list. Okay. Petitions and delegations. Education, school plan, Shemanis Elementary School, Principal Fergus. Shemanis Secondary, welcome.
Shemanis Secondary now.
Elementary.
We're way younger. One of those. Welcome. So my name is Fergus Horsburgh. I'm the principal at Shemanis Elementary. And this is Brenda Lee, our vice principal. And I want to introduce some folks that are going to be helping me in my presentation of our framework. You have Nevaeh and Kathleen and Bella and Lily that are going to share a little bit of info. And when we're finished, if you have some questions for us, they're more than happy to answer those questions for us. So without further ado, I'm going to get promoted to join as a panelist. I want to make sure that I'm seeing what you guys are seeing. So Shemanis Elementary School, we are in the beautiful town of Shemanis, and Shemanis has a fairly long history. We're going to talk a little bit about the history. One of the things that I did want to share is just recently we finished our class reviews. So we've been doing a lot of work on just looking at ultimately the literacy, because of course that's a huge part of everything that we do here. We haven't finished crunching that because we still have one more set of class reviews to do, but we're certainly seeing some interesting patterns, especially in the primary area around phonemic awareness, things like that. But for now, I want to get to these guys because it's more important to hear from them than to hear from me. So first of all, this is one of the pieces in Shemanis that you may recognize. Shemanis is a town that was called the Little Town That Did, famous for its murals. This is probably one of the most famous ones. And where is this mural, my friends?
Behind the
Yeah, it's on the back of our theater. And Shemanis School is located on the territory of 4 First Nations. It is on Penelakut territory, Liaxin, Halalt, and Semanis. And this represents some of the people of that area. Beautiful mural done, I think it's up on 20 years or so ago now. And I'm going to ask Nevaeh, do you want to talk a little bit about this picture that's up there?
This mural is on my uncle's building. My nan's antique shop is at the front of the building that is painted red. She acts like she owns the building, but she really doesn't. This mural is the first contact of Shemanis. Me and my grandma and my sister went to the other side of the island and thought, because they said there were seals on the other spot in the water. We were right next to the mill. This mural is across from the ferry.
One more of the murals. This mural is showing part of the early first contact of the
the settlers that came. And you can see that wood and logging is a very important part of Chemainus, still is. And we have. Do you guys want to come up a little bit here so you can see the screen? I know we practiced a little bit of this. Yeah, you can come right there by the table. What's that? Stand right there because everybody wants to be able to see what you're doing.
Learning happens both in and outside of the school building. We learn lots. We don't only learn when we're inside of the school building. At my old school, my teachers would go take us outside and teach us lots of games that we could play outside, and they would make us take our work outside.
One of the biggest things at our school that we've been focusing on for the last couple of years is outdoor learning. Chemainus School is utterly blessed in its location. For those of you that have been out there, you know that we have forests, we have multiple beaches that you'll see in a moment within a short walk. We also have a outdoor literacy teacher that it's a tiny chunk of time, but we have one of our teachers that teaches both literacy and about the outdoors as well. This is Askew Creek, a very often visited spot amongst our students. And
Penelope and Thetis Island students enjoy games day and sharing. I like these. It's a very close and strong community. They engage with animals and nature. And when I was in kindergarten, I went on a field trip to Thetis's one elementary school. They had rescued sea creatures that were injured, and they restored them back to health. We got to learn about them. And explore the ocean.
I'm going to add a little bit. Thetis Island is a one-room schoolhouse that is part of Chemainus School. And last year we had a wonderful day where we've invited a bunch of kids from Penelope Island, which is of course right next door to Thetis. And that's just one of the little games that we're playing. So we spent the day together sharing food and playing games. It was quite wonderful. And Askew Creek, that first picture that I showed of the kids going across the boardwalk, very, very popular. I'd say we probably go there 10 or 15 visits a week to there as just a great place. And 100 steps, who's got 100 steps?
100 steps to Malcolm Beach. There's 100 steps to Malcolm Beach, and a lot of people like to count them. Some people count 99 steps, and others count 100. So a lot of people argue about that. And counting the 100 steps help the kindergartners learn numbers. And when you get down, my class used to like to do like block skipping contests.
And when they get to the bottom of the beach, here's what we get as part of our school. We consider this part of our school.
Learning about flora and you can find plants and living things at the beach. The beach is a fun way to learn and explore new places. The water can sometimes be cold or warm. You can also relax or build sandcastles or sculptures.
And I was hoping I would have taken a better picture of the outdoor classroom. As you all know, there's a number of outdoor classrooms that have come to our district. We're really fortunate that we have one of them. This was a little project when the outdoor classroom first went up. We had some logs that had some trees that have been cut down in order to build it, and we actually used those logs, and the kids were involved in that. You'll also see up at the top. One of the things that we do at our school after the Christmas holiday is we invite families to share their trees with us, and it's one of the best fort building times. January and February, we have dozens and dozens of trees. They're pretty scraggly by now, and some of them have found another home. But in January and February, it's a really fun spot. And then, of course, just a beautiful picture of Cook Street.
Where can children find literacy or books? mandalas. We did, me and my fellow classmates here were in the same class last year. We did mandalas on paper and outside. As you can see on the board, on the TV, there is a mandala. We did those outside and inside. Numeracy comes in when you have to count the sticks and the rocks. If you have too much or too less, the pattern's going to be different.
Can kids learn by playing? Yes. Ever since I was in kindergarten, I have learned by playing, especially outside. I've made many memories with my friends by learning new things, and I learn new things every day by discovering new plants and living things. As you can see by the picture on the TV, we had construction workers at our school who had a dirt pile. They asked us if they would like to dump it in the forest so the kids can play. They dumped it in the forest, and now many kids play and have found so many new things.
That was about 2 years ago. The district was doing a construction project and they said, would you like some dirt? And kids in a pile of dirt. It's 2 years later and it's still that popular every single day.
Will they have a story to tell, or to write, or share? The answer is yes. I chose this one because it has a butterfly on it, and butterflies are my favorite insect. In some classes, they can have caterpillars and watch them turn into cocoons. The thing about this is that people should spend more time outside than inside on their phones or on electronics. And they should go outside and see the real world.
And with that in mind, another part of this project, we had some of our grade 5s and 6s do some television. So we have a very short 2-minute video. Let's make full size. What was it? Get rid of the echo. Let's see if I can change this.
Because all my friends like to do stuff and they like don't let me play, but I want to, and I'm kind of like I sit down and I can play with them. Fun. I like the sun. I like nature. Well, you need to get pressure and get nature into better and also pressure. That's it's fun. Well, it's fun outside. Inside it's just kind of like I like the fresh air and I like not sitting inside of the ocean. I just like feeling the breeze. Let's go outside and enjoy the sun. Fresh air. What places have you visited with your class so far? Went to the beach and transportation. Indeed. Why do you think it's important to help the environment? It's a different problem. Why do you think it's important?
Let's hold it there. And that is our presentation of Chemainus Elementary School. Somebody must be impressed. That's our presentation. And as you can see, our primary, obviously, there's a whole lot more than just outdoor learning, but outdoor learning is a really important part of everything that we do at our school. And I know that the girls were hoping that you guys might have some questions for them, weren't you? Some yes, some no. If you had any questions for myself.
Questions? How does being outdoors help your learning?
Well, this sounds really, really weird, but whenever I'm outside and I just play for a long time and I come back in, I feel more focused and energetic and ready to learn.
What's your favorite outdoor place to learn? Because I know there were lots of options, but what are yours?
The beach.
What about you, Lily? The bay?
King Beach sounds pretty popular.
It really is.
Trustee Croft.
What's the biggest surprise you ever found when you were learning outside?
Well, when I was in grade 1, we were looking for spiders and just like little ones, but we came across a wolf spider and it climbed up someone's leg and stuff, and they came in the classroom with it and it dropped and everyone was freaking out.
It's really surprising.
I also one time we went to the beach for a field trip. I'm pretty sure it was last year. And I found like this gigantic like jellyfish. It was like really big. Yeah. But the teacher said to stay away from it because it was orange and apparently it could sting you. It was like kind of washing up on shore, so we yeah, it was kind of like weird to find.
Trustee Schmidt.
First of all, can I say thank you for coming today, because your voices are so important to us. And we can't make the decisions that we make at our table if it wasn't for you guys talking to us. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you for coming and using your voices and telling us about your amazing adventure. If you could have one thing in outdoor learning that you don't currently get now, what would it be?
Probably like more like we do sports outside, so that's basically considered outdoor learning. So I wish that we had like more of like accessibility to sports, like a little like when there's spaces outside, like for like baseball or something, you would have just little ones around, or like a little volleyball net or something like that.
Questions? Okay. Thank you very much, Shmanis. Thank you for coming. We enjoyed your time here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's horrible. Fergus.
Next up, we have the International Student Program.
How do you follow
So Allison-
students like that, Dale?
I am at a disadvantage now.
Yes, you are.
It's a hard act to follow. Hi, everyone. Ixbrail, Ikwana Silamnala. Thank you for inviting me here today to talk about the International Student Program. Of course, we don't have a school plan because our students are encompassed in all the other school plans that you'll see. So I'm just going to talk to you about what we're doing this year in our program, who our students are, and maybe just some highlights that we are looking forward to, a couple of different things coming up as well. So why do we have international students here in the district? I think the biggest reason is they bring a perspective and a worldview to our classes. I remember when I was first teaching, and this was 20 years ago, and I had an ecotourism class and we went camping, and we had a student from Japan that came on that trip, and she wrote me this little letter after, and she talked about how she'd never been camping before, and it was the most amazing experience. She was from Tokyo, which is a city of 30 million people, largest city in the world, and to her to be able to go out, not that far from town and actually be in wilderness and play on the beach and spend the night in the woods was an amazing experience. And it really opened my eyes to, I think, what we take for granted here in Canada and on Vancouver Island, and just the the ability to see our world through a different set of eyes. And then also in class discussions, what people can bring that come from different places that have a totally different experience, and how that enriches our local students as well. And then of course, there's the revenue generation piece, which is a major piece as well for the district, is to try to bring in some much needed funds that can go right into the classroom. So who are our students? Why do they come to Cowichan? These are not our students. This is a picture.
Thank God.
That's the board.
I mean, this is a very popular picture. I use it in recruiting all the time. When I put it up to families and kids from other parts of the world, they get so excited. Because again, this is something we take for granted, and in some cases like are an annoyance for some people. But for people not from here, it's like, wow, you can actually see sea lions right there, and hear them and smell them and all of that stuff. So I use this picture, and it's very popular as a recruiting tool. So when I talk about why kids should choose Cowichan, of course, I talk about our education system. Now, I think you can't really go wrong anywhere in Canada, especially BC, for education, but I really believe in what we do in the Cowichan Valley in our schools, and it's like a joy for me to talk about that all over the world. Another attraction is our small cities. Again, that's something that we take for granted, but when I go to places like Sao Paulo, and I'm there on a recruiting trip and I can't leave the hotel at night, it makes me, really appreciate what we have here in Cowichan, and how at any time of day or night by myself or with anybody, I'm free to leave our house, leave our schools, wander around safely. So the ability to do that is an attraction for many people and their families. Of course, our Canadian culture and our island lifestyle, and our climate. I talk a lot about our climate when people are looking at, where in Canada should I go? Well, today is maybe the exception, but come to Cowichan for our fabulous weather. So here's our students for this year. We have 20 different countries represented. The usual suspects: Japan, Italy, Germany, Spain. Those are our sort of bread and butter countries. But we are enhancing our presence in places like South America and in other countries like Europe. I'll talk more about that in a moment, but I want to point out some unique things. One of the things you might mention is there's a student from Canada in the international student program, and that's odd. That is part of the compliance function of our department as well. So this student, who is Canadian, goes to Francis Kelsey. Her family a couple of years ago moved to Costa Rica. She did not want to go, so she stayed. But now, since her family doesn't live here anymore, she no longer is actually considered ordinarily resident by the BC government, so she's not a funded student anymore. So for her to go to school in Canada, she goes through us, pays the international student tuition, and so by all intents and purposes is an international student, even though she's lived here all her life. But that's one of the jobs that we do in our office as well, as compliance. So likewise, we have students from out of province. They're not captured in this data because they're not part of our international student system, but we also vet students from out of province, again, not funded students. So they come to our office so we can invoice them for tuition. Uniquely, we have 3 students from Australia. This is a really cool story. Kathy knows a little bit about this, or Trustee Schmidt knows about this story. These students are here as part of an Australian government grant in conjunction with an ice hockey team in Australia. They live in a tiny community outside of Adelaide, and these are Indigenous Australian students. They, before they came here, had never really left their community before. This is a completely different demographic of student than we've ever had in our program. They received this government grant and a foundation called the Ice Factor Foundation in Australia to come to Canada, specifically to a community that has both ice hockey and an Indigenous population. So the idea is they get exposed to Canada ice hockey and a place where people can see that Indigenous people can have an impact on their community, can be successful, can be included in society. Australia is struggling, I think, much behind Canada with their truth and reconciliation. And so these kids have an opportunity to see a place that's a little more progressive. So we have these 3 students, and they are overwhelmed continuously. They have joined the school hockey team. Trustee Schmidt arranged for them to get some tickets to the Capitals game, so they can actually, they'd never seen hockey played before until they got here, other than at their school. And so this is just a really eye-opening situation for them all around. Their foundation has provided some extra funds so they can join our field trips and experience some different things. I'm kind of reaching out to all sorts of different places in the community, because these are kids that they don't have any money, which is different than most of our international students. So I'm trying, like Trustee Schmidt giving us hockey tickets, trying to find little pockets of groups that will provide them with some opportunities so they can see some different parts of the district while they're here too. So that's kind of a fun story for us, because it's a different group of kids. Obviously they speak English really well. So they don't need English support like a lot of our students, but they need kind of a cultural support. So that's something fun for us. And coming next semester, obviously diversity is important to an international student program, but it's also kind of embedded in an international student program. But we are trying diversity and inclusion in a different way. So next semester, we will have our first student in a wheelchair. So she's coming for 3 months. And we will also have our first transitioning student. And so he will be coming first semester. So we're trying to be inclusive and really reach out to students that maybe didn't know that they had an opportunity to come and study abroad. So that's our sort of plan, is to become more diverse and more inclusive. So just a little bit about our enrollment. We have roughly the same number of students that we've always had in terms of bodies, but our enrollment is slightly decreased this year because most of those students are short-term students. So 3 months, 4 months, as opposed to 1 semester or 1 year. For example, if you look at the slide that shows you how many students from Japan we have a huge number of students from Japan. Most of those are short-term, 3-month students. We actually have agreements with 3 different schools in Japan, and they send us 3-month students as just part of their school cultural exchange. But we're finding that a lot of countries are doing 3 and 4 month stays instead of 5 months, 1 year, likely because of inflation. We talk a lot about inflation in Canada. When you turn on the news, it's all you hear. But when you travel to Europe, we're talking about 15% inflation. When you travel to South America, we're talking about over 20% inflation. So the cost of something like study abroad is a factor. So rather than these kids not getting the opportunity, they're getting a slightly shorter experience. So our numbers of bodies are about the same, but our FTE is a little down. Our recruiting in Europe is going really well. South America is going really well. We're still struggling with places like China that used to be the bread and butter of the program that really haven't recovered yet from COVID, from some political differences between Canada and China. Some districts are starting to see a bit of a recovery, so we'll be looking to improve there as well. But then, like I said, inflation, pressures from wars in Europe. War is a little more real than here. And now, of course, we have another conflict in the Middle East, and that affects just the ability and the willingness for people to travel abroad. But we've been able to be more profitable than in the past because we, taking a page out of the strategic plan, want to be nimble. And so we can react to changing numbers with our staffing, with how we deliver programs, with the way we do our recruiting. So we still go out and recruit. We maybe do fewer trips, more reliance on Zoom and technology. I had a Zoom meeting this morning. I had another one yesterday. So we're still doing a lot of things, but we're trying to be nimble. We're trying to be creative to make sure that our profitability is still high, even if we have reduced numbers. 2 times a month, we do field trips for our students. So tomorrow night, we have 80 students going to a haunted house for Halloween. Halloween is not really celebrated in a lot of parts of the world. So kids are surprised when they get here and they see that kids and adults wear costumes to school on Halloween. It's a big deal. So they're really excited about the haunted house tomorrow night. Last weekend, we had 30 students go surfing in Tofino. We have next weekend a trip to Vancouver coming up. So we try to do 2 field trips a month. We have a Christmas lights tour coming up at Bouchard Gardens in December. We have a Christmas baking day. So sometimes the field trips are elaborate, like skiing or Whistler, or a summer camp that we rent for a day in June. Sometimes they're simple, like a movie or shopping, or let's make Christmas cookies in one of the foods rooms at Cow High. So we try to give kids cultural opportunities, as well as some sightseeing and the ability to see some different parts of the area than maybe they're seeing through their school or through their host families. The field trips are super popular. So as I mentioned, we're both Kevin O'Donnell, our vice principal, and I are still doing recruiting. We recruit through agencies. So we go to agent fairs, we go to student fairs, we do school visits, we have Zoom meetings, we have a website, we have a YouTube channel. So we're using social media. We use Instagram quite a lot to get our message out there. And when I talk to students and their families, I'm always saying, follow us on Instagram because you'll see what we're doing. So we're trying to use all sorts of different channels for recruiting, not just the old school, going on the road, knocking on doors kind of thing. We're trying to be really efficient and use all modalities for recruitment. And then, as you know, we have homestay families, and the homestay families are probably the most important. I know I'm supposed to say the school is the most important, but I actually think the homestay families are the most important part of the program, because first of all, we couldn't do it without them. But second of all, these are the families that are taking these kids into their homes and providing them with experiences, not just a place to live and warm meals, but that whole Canadian culture and second family. And I was just talking to Trustee Lise about, her daughter's wedding and former students that came to Italy from Germany for the wedding. So this was years ago that Trustee Lise hosted students. I talk to our host families all the time that keep in touch with their students. Last Christmas, I got a message from a graduated student. I'm in Duncan. Can I come and get a tour of the school? I want to see Cow High again. It was December 26th, but they keep in touch. So the host families, like I said, are key to our program, and the better the experience that students can have with the host family, the better overall experience they have. They're going to have a great experience at schools. Our schools are great, our teachers are fantastic, our program is really strong, so we really depend on our host families for all those other pieces, for cultural immersion, for just introduction to the community. Lots of our host families are teachers or they're coaches, so they really understand young people, but it's a very important key for us is the high quality families in Cowichan. And we're starting to get a reputation for having a great homestay program. I hear it quite often in Brazil. They talk about our homestay program as being very well known, so that's really great. Yeah, you're great. So here are our social media channels if you want to follow us too. So we're most active on Instagram, but we do have some fun videos up on YouTube as well. And of course, we have a website. Students can apply right through the website, and most of the time they go through agencies. Homestay families can apply right through our website. Sometimes we contact our office, but we direct them there as well. So please, if you have a spare moment, follow us on Instagram at least, and you'll be able to see what we're up to in real time. Any questions?
Just a comment. We had a student, and I think about kids coming from Japan, who were on a walk in the dark, and she laid down on the ground. And my husband and I are going, what is going on? And she looked up and she had never seen stars. She lived in a city where you had never seen the stars. And so when you think about being an international host parent, it isn't always about, we took them skiing, we took them camping, we took them whale watching, but it's about laying down. We all lay down on the ground and watch the stars. So,
yeah, so it's little things that we just don't even think of as remarkable because they're just part of our regular lives. Yeah.
Trustee Schmidt.
First of all, thank you for being, like a woman of many talents here, but I really appreciate the fact that you reach out to the community and try and give these kids a full-fledged experience. When I got that email, it just made my heart warm that I knew I could help you, and I know that there's probably many others that would do the same for you. I think you're just doing an amazing job, and just thank you for making sure that these kids get everything, so that when they go home, if they never get back out again, then they have that memory of what you've been able to offer them. So.
Thank you. Yeah, I will share that with my team because I'm one of a small but mighty group of people that make these things happen.
That's very cool. Thank you.
Or go ahead.
Well, thanks. Just a quick question. Thank you. It's wonderful work that you and your team are doing. In terms of the 3 Indigenous Australian kids, have there any sort of connections been made with any of the First Nations in the area in terms of you know, like the winter, like, you know, attending bakehouse sort of winter dances or anything like that, any kind of cultural sort of exchange?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I've talked to the vice principal, Penny Butler at Cow High, which is where the kids are, and she oversees Indigenous education for the school. And so she is inviting them to the different Indigenous education opportunities that those kids are invited to as well. One of the students actually got to attend through their host family a restorative justice circle for Indigenous people. And that was, I think, a very powerful experience for him. So that is one of the things we're trying to do, is make sure that the INED department here and at the school includes these kids in their programming and their invitations. And we're kind of brainstorming about Remembrance Day and how we can introduce them to, you know, some of the Indigenous events that happen on that day in the community as well, so they can see yet another aspect of Indigenous culture here. So, yeah.
Question. How are you doing with homestays? Is it still looking for more?
Well, we're always recruiting homestays because, you know, things happen. You know, we just had a homestay family get some health news and had to withdraw from the program, so we moved the students to another. So, you know, we're always sort of in flux for host families. We don't accept more students than we have families. I've certainly heard stories from neighboring districts that have done that, and they've been scrambling to place students. And, you know, I've also been on the receiving end of emails from agencies saying, our student was supposed to go to X district, and now they've told us that they don't have a family and the plane ticket is next week. Can you take the student? And I don't ever want to be that X district that other people are getting emails about. And also just to make sure that my homestay coordinators, you know, aren't too stressed out. We like to have a reserve pool because moves do happen for a variety of reasons. So we always have more host families than we have students. But that said, we're always recruiting host families. We get students with, you know, specialty requests, vegan diet, nut free, pet free. Pet free is the hardest thing to accommodate. So, you know, we always are looking for host families because there might be a good match, even if we have a good inventory, might be a good match just based on a family and what they do, or, you know, what they can accommodate on a student coming in. So yeah, our door is always open for host families.
So host families are not a problem with they're not restricting the amount of kids.
Right after COVID, we lost a lot of host families during COVID. Understandably, people just weren't that willing to take people into their homes from different parts of the world. But we did build that back up nicely. So we're not restricted by host families, but we're always open to host families, because the more families we have, the more students we can place, and the better job of placing we can do, because the variety of host families match better the variety of students we get.
So where are the trends for where the students are coming from now? I know they're constantly changing.
Yeah.
Europe seems to be growing.
Yeah, Europe, you know, it's so shifted, because before COVID, I think this program is before my time in the program, but certainly I was at the schools here. You know, the program was probably 80% students from China before COVID, and, you know, little bits of Japan, Germany, Spain, Italy. That was kind of it. So once COVID hit and we really had to take stock about how do we have a program now with our main client base shut off, we really went and looked at Europe, because there's so much interest in British Columbia and Europe. And so we really capitalize on that. Like I said, we have those agreements with some schools in Japan that are sort of continually sending us those 3-month kids. I spent quite a bit of effort this past year with South America. And so now we have the highest numbers from Brazil and Chile that we've ever had. I think there's more opportunity there in terms of Colombia. Lots of districts get students from Colombia. We don't have that. So there's more markets to explore. So we really had to shift and focus our energy in places that we knew people were traveling. And like I said, now that we're hearing from other districts that China's starting to recover, we need to talk about, you know, why isn't it recovering for us, and what do we need to do to get that back? We don't ever want to be 80% from one country again. We like the diversity, but, you know, we have space for more students. And so it would be nice to have some more students from other parts of Asia, not just Japan.
Trustee Lisa.
Just a quick question. I know we had 12 students over our time, so we love the program. But I see a lot of ones.
Yeah.
So, and so usually when the students are coming from another country, they're paired up or there's more than one, but it's interesting. I saw ones and
Yeah.
twos. Is it just that it's hard to get the students from there, or you're building those?
Sometimes it's just a matter of, oh, I've just made a connection with an agent, and so they're kind of trying us out, and you know, they'll send us a student or two and see if they like us. In some cases, in Nepal, for example, there's two. That's a compliance case, so it's a family whose the children are living with their relatives, well, you know, to graduate, so they're here just because they have family here, but they're still international students. Poland, you know, we have one student. Last year we had two, kind of same new agency, just kind of trying us out. And so we're really trying to establish those relationships and show that, you know, Cowichan is a place that people want to come. Yeah.
Trustee Croft.
A comment and a question. So my comment is I appreciate you keeping your eye to profits, but I suspect that you know, the board is always equally interested in quality for you know, value for their spending. So, and I know that's what Cowichan is, so I know you're delivering on that. I'm interested in the business mechanisms of it. So you talk about agencies, you talk about having what looks like a contract or an arrangement with a school in Japan. How do the kids come to you, and what's the business of bringing them here?
That's a really interesting question with several answers. So primarily kids come to us through agencies. So in different countries, they'll have these businesses, they do student recruitment. So they market, travel abroad. And so we have contracts with agencies. We pay them a commission. The commission is based on the tuition portion, not, you know, the homestay, that kind of thing. And so, for example, tomorrow I'm off to Spain for a week. But then the students will sign up through their agency to come to us, so not applying directly. So most of the work we do is really just maintaining relationships with agencies, and you know, having them trust you and know that you have, you know, a quality homestay program, quality schools. And so it's really just doing a lot of talking to agents, emailing them, oh, this is an exciting new program, you know, Equestrian Academy at Francis Kelsey, that kind of thing, kind of continually keeping them up to date about what we're doing in Cowichan. To find new agents, so for example, talking about new markets that we maybe don't have much of a presence in, there are organizations that do what's called agent fairs. So it's kind of like a student fair, but instead of kids and families coming to your booth, it's agencies coming. And so it's almost like speed dating. You have 20 minutes to pitch your district to an agency, hopefully that you make that connection. A bell rings, they're off to the next district, a new agent comes, you do your 20-minute spiel again, and you do this for a couple of days. So that's how we make connections with new agencies. Sometimes an agency will just email me out of the blue. They found us somehow, and those are great too. But yeah, we sort of make connections through these agent fairs, then really maintain those, like everything in education is a people business. And so really we're just, instead of now relationships, you know, like with schools have with their students, we have with our agents. So we're continually just maintaining and building those relationships with agencies, and hopefully they're sending us students.
Trustee Lisa.
So yeah, I love this. But do we have many Cowichan students going elsewhere? Do they do that through you, or
well, they don't. We're just strictly inbound, but I would say once a year or so I get someone wandering into our office, where can you send me? So we don't really have that ability, but there are groups that do. So I always save brochures, and then I hand them to the student. You can contact this company out of Toronto. They do outbound student exchanges and that kind of thing. Actually, the schools in Japan that we deal with, there is one that would be happy to receive Canadian students for 3 months. So starting to ask our vice principal to look into how can we kind of market that as an opportunity for our students to go to this city in Japan called Sendai. It's a beautiful school, and have some of our students have an opportunity. That would be really great.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
You should be agents.
You should go on some of these trips with us.
Trustees
You're shaking support. She said she wants to leave me. I could be your bodyguard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
District Technology Plan, Mr. Posey.
The sea lion.
Oh, yeah, I love the sea lions. Yeah.
Swale, everyone. Quanasi Alumnola. Thanks so much for the opportunity to talk to you about our instructional technology innovation plan. We're in the final quarter, so year 4 of the plan. And so for some of you, this will be new information. For others, you will have seen bits and pieces of this. I'm going to talk about sort of the road we've been traveling, and then sort of what does our regeneration and next steps look like as we move forward into next year. So I'm going to let this little animate talk to about 90 seconds of what this plan is all about.
Instructional Technology and Innovation 2020 to 24, Plan Summary. Globalization and technological advances are creating rapid social and economic change. By the time today's learners graduate in the 2030s and beyond, problem solving and resilience will be essential as job skills will quickly evolve and become obsolete. Besides being literate across domains, students will need skills to help them interpret the world and flourish in an ever-expanding technological and data-driven environment. Technology must be infused in daily learning to provide and support students in entrepreneurship, technical skills, and knowing how to protect their personal privacy and security. Competencies to create and innovate, contribute socially, collaborate with others, and think critically. The Cowichan Valley School District Instruction and Innovation Department, along with our partner groups, believes in co-creating technology-enriched learning environments, offering students personalized, anytime, anywhere, transformational, technology-infused learning. Strategic priorities: expansion of internet bandwidth at each school, improved wired and wireless networks across schools through stronger security, traffic shaping and 10G switch connections, provision of ongoing staff training and professional development to support instructional practice in digitally rich learning environments, expansion of strategic leasing to keep technology equipment on a 3 to 4 year refresh cycle, a continued system-wide focus on privacy and security, ensuring actions are aligned to the broader district strategic plan focused on learning, indigenous ways of knowing, a culture of care and future-focused systems. The Cowichan Valley School District Instruction and Innovation Department, excellence through innovation.
So there's our quick little elevator pitch that summarizes our 30-page document down to about 90 seconds. And I'm going to package a few of these key pillars that are in the plan. So first of all, we always talk about how do we support getting to this learning amplified by technology in our classrooms. And it starts with strong infrastructure, hardware standards, software standards, and all of those pieces of software and services that we run in order to get to that final peak. But if we look at it a slightly different way, we've got connectivity and security, and then all the other pieces that are going to lead us to graduating our future-ready 21st century skilled students. But it really sits at a single hinge point. If we don't have our connectivity, if we don't have our security, everything else is in trouble. So it's really, when we think about it, it's a way of thinking about it's the new utility. Wi-Fi is like our electricity. When we go to a wall, we expect to hit the light switch, and you expect the lights to come on. People now go into buildings, you expect your wireless to work, you have it in all the classrooms, you have it out in the fields in many cases. And along with that, the data that's traveling across those networks is much like our hot water. We expect that data to move and work well. And it's continually part of our technical team and the plan to improve upon the services that we're offering. So when it's working, everybody's happy, it's fantastic. And of course, we've all had a few days of this where I can't get on the network, and the nice thing is fewer and fewer times now it's internal, often it's external to our building where we're running into some of these challenges. So plan priorities. Networking is absolutely key. So we're continually looking at our infrastructure, we're adjusting, tweaking bandwidth, looking at security pieces, trying to get as much traffic going through our networks in an effective way. So we shape our traffic so that students get a certain amount of bandwidth, the office gets a certain amount of bandwidth, guests on our network get a certain amount of bandwidth. So all of that work is continually happening and just keeping things moving the way it should. So that's a big plan priority always. And with the Internet of Things, everything is starting to become IP-driven, Internet Protocol driven. So everything's getting attached. And I would expect, particularly with us building our new couch and secondary, we know that lighting systems are going to be connected and various pieces, and more our networks, everything is connected because we want to be able to control them from our devices. So it's becoming really important that they function well. So the other layer on that then becomes our network security. And there's a couple layers. There's the technical layer, which is what we're doing at this firewall. That brick wall there denotes our firewall. And that's how we're keeping malicious actors and malicious code out of our networks. We're not having machines infected and things being taken down. And then there's the human side of our privacy practices, which is don't put passwords under your keyboard. Please use two-factor authentication. Make sure you're resetting passwords regularly, things like that. So there's two big pieces, and that's another part of the plan priority has been supporting those types of processes. So when we talk about the importance of technical security, here's some examples. So in the last couple of years, the French Public School Board back east, they actually paid a ransom. They had about 75,000 records of families get stolen and locked down, and they actually paid the ransom to get it back. Last year, Vancouver Film School. Yesterday, 5 hospitals in Southern Ontario were taken down. Their shared service provider that they moved data back and forth through was under a cyber attack. So the last thing that I want is to be going to Robin or to Jason and saying, we've had a breach, we're under attack. But it really is not if it happens, it's when it happens. So this needs to continually be part of our work in the plan. That number, I won't make anybody guess, but just as an example, to any guesses in 10 seconds, I won't give good wait time here. So that number is how many virtual ports you have on a computer. So a port is a highway to get data in and out of your computer in the way that a network is chopped up. So any single computer has 65,535 attack vectors that we have to deal with and close the door on. And that's on a single machine. So that's the type of battle that you're up against, particularly as AI gets smarter and smarter and starts to look for gaps in our security. Another priority in the plan is equitable access for students. In many of our buildings, we're getting to a 1-to-2 ratio. We've tried to ensure that we've got a 1-to-3 ratio of portable devices to every student. We welcome BYOD, so bring your own device onto our networks. We welcome that. We provide our more at-risk schools with a higher device density if requested. And we also support schools if they want to go beyond what our central budgets are supporting. We work with them to support additional devices. So those are all the things we're doing to support equitable access to technology so that we can amplify learning. When it comes to the financial side of things, we've moved over the last number of years to strategic leasing so that we're trying to get more and more equipment on an evergreen refresh cycle. So for example, last year we had 600 devices come off lease. This January, we have 1,200 devices coming off lease, and we continually roll our equipment to keep that core equipment as current as it needs to be for our teachers and our students and for our business systems. And then we also do strategic buying of new and lease return. So we go to the lease return market because not everything has to be a brand shiny new piece of equipment. Sometimes a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old piece of equipment can run another 3 or 4 years and give us very good value. So those are the types of things that we're doing around our financials. And then, of course, we want to try to offer these learning opportunities that develop creative thinkers, entrepreneurialism, technical competencies in our students. And we want to connect that back to our broader strategic plan, which is focused on one of the areas in the learning is applied learning, authentic real-world experiences. So I show this picture here. This is from our challenge-based inquiry classroom group, which has grown to about 30 classrooms. And this is from Drinkwater, a grade 6-7 class. And so they were using their technology to research the placement of the women's shelter. And so they went out and they did a bunch of research, and they actually took their solutions and recommendations to North Cowichan Council. They presented it, and they got both positive and the real critical feedback in a real world setting, and it was quite an authentic learning experience for them. So just an example of some of our challenge-based inquiry and how that technology is connecting them to those resources so they can do those types of things. Why that real world, creative, critical, authentic thinking is important. If we look at the OECD skills for 2030, this graph sort of outlines since 1960 where repetitive, routine type work, it's going this way, and that sort of non-routine, creative thinking, humanistic interaction, those types of jobs are going in the other direction. So it's important. And to come back to employment opportunities, I always follow what's happening in the cybersecurity world. And the prediction now is that there'll be 3.5 million unfilled positions, globally by 2025. So if we've got our kids with excellent technology skills, this is just one slice of the market of those sort of creative problem-solving type jobs that are going to be out there. So developing the plan really quickly, how did we get there for this plan? We worked with our experts on our District Tech Advisory Committee. We took feedback from our partner groups. We took feedback from our teachers. We surveyed our students. The students gave us information on what they'd like to see more of in their learning, how they'd like to demonstrate their learning. And then we put it all together. And so just a quick highlight of the 30-page document. There was training and innovation, there was instructional technology. What does that look like in our classrooms across our grade levels? There was supporting our admin and excluded staff. There was a plan around our support staff, of course, our hardware standards, making selections, infrastructure. And then every one of those sections was laid out with goals, with a status statement, with the actions to achieve those goals, who the leads were, and cost estimates per year. So that's how the plan sort of was fleshed out and designed. So next steps, where do we go looking to the future? There's a few things that are coming up. AI, it's everywhere right now. That is one of the hot button topics, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. Our privacy and security, And then taking those top two bullets, how do we maximize the use of our technology for our students? And how do we also do that in our business systems as an organization? So the artificial intelligence side is full of lots of questions right now. What artificial intelligence platforms and why? How were they trained? What data was put into those systems? So you hear about Facebook and Meta, and they take 200,000-300,000 books and they feed it into their big data systems. Well, what choices were made on those texts? Is there bias built in? So there's all sorts of questions about, and it's all of this artificial intelligence is running on big data, big data sets, and then it pulls and the algorithms work with that data. And then we've got privacy and security as AI is getting smarter and smarter to try to trick people and get their passwords and get credit cards and produce fraud and all of those pieces. And on top of that, the surveillance capitalism that's going on where, if the site is free or the site is really affordable, you are the product in most cases, and they're tracking your movements and you'll get targeted ads. And this is all AI driven now. So it's how do we educate our staff and our students and our community to be aware of those things. And the privacy and security is really going to be our AI dealing with external AI, and how do we leverage that and pull all those pieces together to support these bottom two. When we think about AI, this is sort of the debate in the public realm right now. Is it the end? Is this Terminator? Or I prefer to go with this belief that's coming out of MIT and Stanford and many other educational AI thinkers, that it's not about developing students to compete with AI. It's about teaching our students how to leverage AI. So it's not AI, it's intelligence augmentation. So how do we get where we can leverage it as a tool in all the things that we want to do? So it'll be in our classrooms, for example, that written paper. Yes, it's important to learn how to write, but now you can go to certain AIs and have a paper in about 90 seconds or put a few good questions in, edit it, and you're done. How do you demonstrate that you can apply the skills that we want you to apply? And that will be some of the transition as we move towards AI. It'll be application based, because AI can reproduce anything repetitive really, really quickly for us. So I'm just going to jump off here and we're going to hop over. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about AI and teacher support. And so there's sites such as Copilot. This is a really, really interesting site for teachers. And so there's lots of positive things that will support reducing workload or getting at information, more quickly. So here, for example, is a PowerPoint generator. Generate a 15-slide educational PowerPoint on any topic, simply provide a few details and let Copilot do the rest. So I did a little test on this. And just out of interest, I asked the question about, okay, if I was a math teacher, how do I use exponents in real life? And in 30 seconds, I had a slide deck that talked about exponential growth and decay and compound interest and exponential functions and scientific notation. And at the end, it said, here's where I found all that information. And so there are tools out there that will certainly accelerate and help our teachers in their instructional practice. And other things are really quite interesting. So has anybody played with text to art AI? So just as a little quick look here, let's ask this AI. We're going to ask it to create an image for us. And we'll say, create a drawing of the Duncan, British Columbia City Hall circa 1965. Let's see what we get. So it's taken the text, it's taken my prompt. It's not quite accurate, but it's you know, if the student was wanting to have a graphical representation of something, that's how, and that's going out and scouring the web, and it's assembling based on what the AI thinks it should be doing. And so there's really some interesting stuff starting to come together. And our challenge is going to be having conversations about how do we most effectively leverage this. Has anybody in here played with ChatGPT? Any of the couple? So it's really becoming a useful tool as a starting point for different things. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT. I'll say, write a one-page email thanking the Board of Education and Business Committee for their interest in the Cowichan Valley School District's technology plan and for their support in providing technology budgets that support the development of future-ready graduates from our schools. So if I fire that in there, that's how long it took. And it'll be a very well-written piece of text based on what it believes are other key features that would pull into that.
Who knew AI was so politic?
So and so this is our next conversation, and to ban it, like other jurisdictions are trying to do, I think it's sort of like trying to ban, you know, roads and electricity and other things. That we need to look at how do we embrace this and how do we leverage it and augment our intelligence and not try to compete with it. So it will fundamentally, I believe, force us to shift a little bit in how we're delivering our instruction over the next coming years. I think the big piece in this that's beyond the scope of this table is in the next 5 to 15 years, governments at the highest level, they are going to have to be careful on policies and design and ethics and things like that. It's going to be a critical and fascinating conversation to follow. So I've taken you through the AI samples, and I just always want to do a shout out to my technical team that keeps this system going. So we've got 6 technical staff. We've got about 4,600 devices plus phone systems, cell phones, printers, copiers, all the bits and pieces, all the related software across all of the departments. We've got a student information system manager that deals with all of our student information systems, and we've got a district library system that deals with the sort of the technical pieces of our libraries. So we've got a small and efficient team, and they support a lot of pieces that, and it will become more and more important as we move forward. So thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it.
Questions, Trustee Schmidt?
I actually have several. Why are other jurisdictions trying to ban AI? Why do they want to ban it? What are they worried about that they want to ban it?
I would suggest, I mean, one of the first things, if we talk about universities and they're trying to ban it because they're worried about plagiarism. Okay. Well, you saw what I was able to produce just like that. My question back to them is, okay, you need to be challenging your students differently and asking for different competencies, because if we're going to have our students compete with AI, they've lost already.
Okay. So universities want the personal touch. They don't want something that's computer generated. Okay, got it. How much Pro D is given to teachers so that they know how to do all of this?
So, so we're just starting to tool up on this piece. So historically and over the last number of years, so we've engaged Microsoft Coach, Apple Education Coach, Science World. We have a Vancouver Island Learning Network conference that we co-design with 14 or 15 other districts that attend. So we try to create, rolling opportunities throughout the year. And then also we if I ever get calls or asked from teachers, we can point them to, there's fantastic YouTube channels now from Microsoft and different organizations that are there for self-learning as well.
Okay, so do they have any like personal pieces? Because I know that, there are teachers that would rather learn or could learn better if they had personal support instead of going to look at it on YouTube. Like, my concern would be is that proper training is not, like, maybe some teachers won't use it because they're not getting what they really need, which is a one-on-one kind of thing. So, like, are those opportunities, like, is there a Pro D Day built so that they can have those opportunities to ask questions as they go instead of just going to YouTube?
So specific to AI, there hasn't been anything, but that's certainly something we need to plan for.
And my last one is how much Pro D is needed to keep your staff ahead of the curveball? Like, how much learning do they have to do?
So we've shifted one position just recently into a new security position. So there's going to be a lead technician that's going to be playing the Gopher game basically on a daily basis. And then my team, we try to get them training as often as we can. I mean, they are learning every day because there's something that comes up almost every day that we have to go and research, and we contact Microsoft or we contact Jamf, which is our device management system. So I can't put like hours on it, but we try to and ask them to get certified. I provide internal training for Pro D. For example, I'm taking 3 of the team over to our IT4K12, and they will attend all the security sessions at the provincial conference where Microsoft will be there and the networking companies will be there.
Okay. And my final question is we had some beautiful little students standing in the here with us today, and they said that we need to put down our devices and go and enjoy some outdoor learning. And I'm wondering what is made available to schools now so that when kiddos are outside enjoying their out time learning, getting their fresh air with maybe not the normal devices, like what technology is supporting them in their outdoor learning? So
we've positioned in the K-9, K-10 space heavily with this device. Now, I should have brought my keyboard, so I have a full-size Bluetooth keyboard that goes with this. And our philosophy around this is if I want to go outside, I can take this, I can gather evidence of learning, I can take video footage, I can then bring it back to the classroom and analyze. I've left my keyboard behind. I've got a protective case, so if I'm going to do something else, that can be set down, with proper supervision by the teacher and things. So we've got a portable device here that will connect with the O365 system. It will do video, it will do voice to text, it will do all those pieces for students.
So that's available on site?
So these are in every school, and minimum 1-to-3 ratio. So we've pushed that model rather than trying to pack this outside, which is a much different device and harder to.
Thank you. Yeah, on AI as well. So as like higher levels of government struggle with the moral, ethical implications of some of this and other implications as well, while that is unfolding debate and whatnot, I'm wondering, like, do we need to be developing any policies around this at the local level?
I'm certain. So we've got multiple DTAC meetings coming up. So our District Tech Advisory Committee, and this is one of the pieces that I'll be putting on the agenda is what are our future conversations around this. Certainly banning something is not a direction that I would support, but we need to look at how do we manage it and what's our vision. And it's so new. AI it's sort of like the recipe for baking the cake has now been released to the world, and there's AI-driven everything popping up now because we can do it. We can do it affordably. It's been commoditized. So that's the hard part, to know It's asking those questions. How has this been trained? Has it been trained in an ethical way? Is there bias? Are we comfortable with the data it's going to collect about our staff and students and families? There's all these pieces that roll into it. So, and I do believe that some of those pieces we already have in place with our existing privacy procedures and APs that we have, but it may be that we need to add something about AI into some of those. So it might not be that it has to be brand new. It could be addition as well. So.
Through the chair to the superintendent, maybe this conversation, I know that we're doing a strat plan regen now, and it sounds like maybe trustees might want to have this conversation to see, because we will be setting that direction with the strat plan. So maybe this is a conversation that we can also add to be able to have that, so that everybody's feeling comfortable with what's moving forward and what's not moving forward.
So I'm to the chair. So you're making reference that this would be something that maybe should go to planning. Okay. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions too. To the end initiative, you sort of said, cybersecurity, this is 3.5 million jobs coming up, and it's for creatives. Well, you know what, for the end initiative, cybersecurity, you'd have to convince me that that's a creative opportunity. So I just wanted to learn more about that.
So let me make sure I'm understanding the question.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. So the employment for
So you mentioned
reference to the employment.
So
when I look at a role like cybersecurity, and we're looking at building skill sets in our learners to be problem solvers, collaborators, to be critical thinkers, that's all woven in when you're trying to basically stop malicious attackers that are trying to get in to your networks and try to do harm. You're using all of those skills on top of the technical skills that you have to build to be able to do that. So
now I'm convinced.
So so when I speak to that, and that is just one little slice of all of the example picture showed a physician with sort of the Star Trek-y augmented AI. Same thing, those types of jobs, and where they're going to ask, here's a picture of a tumor, AI, go out and tell me what this is to the best. So it will reference in minutes, 1 million photos of tumors and say, it's this or this, and then come back to the physician.
It's more accurate, right? Yeah.
And then the physician does that humanistic and the actual surgery and all those pieces. Does that get at your question?
It covers it. Yes. Thank you very much. I have two more. One is really fast. So you mentioned benefit. This isn't the fast one. You mentioned benefiting our community in general by having a robust and educated, your team, right, in terms of managing the technology for our district, that benefits everyone. But you also mentioned communities. So I'm just wondering, is the kind of expertise that you guys have and are developing for our students, is that something that would be of value to parents to know about?
I think understanding, the impacts of surveillance capitalism, how to configure a device to block, cookies and trackers, how to potentially use parental controls if there are those people interested. That's always a hard one, because some parents want it, some people don't, and where's that mid? But even speaking to parents about, did you know these types of features are available? Sometimes even the internet providers now have parental controls that are available in certain hours. You can lock out the smart TVs where between this hour and this hour you can't use it. There's those types of things, and it's not just sitting with internally here. There all are external speakers that we can go to that can speak to some of those things as well.
Great, thank you. And one last one, which I think is the short one. So you got ChatGPT to write a letter, right? And I've been using ChatGPT quite a bit. I find it takes a lot of editing because it sounds like Wikipedia, right? All the time, Wikipedia all the time. So I was wondering, are there any ways to test that something has been written by AI? Because I say, if you if you put a portion of that letter back in, wouldn't it spit back the entire letter and then you would know that it had written it?
It will I've played with Chat GTP enough where it will read, you can try it once.
Yeah.
Not quite what I want to try it again. And it will generatively retry and it won't just regurgitate the
So it actually
same thing. So it will, yes, it does try because, oh, you regenerated that same thing. I must not have given you what you wanted.
Oh my God.
And then it will try. So on your question, the developers of Chat GTP and other AIs now are, I think it's a marketing piece. Now they're trying to say, we'll give you tools that will tell you if this was 100% generated through our systems. I can't answer how that's going to work. And to your question, could we in the room determine? You might be able to, but I tell you, when I read some of them, I'm going, wow, that is nicely written.
Okay. I haven't found that
really
yet.
is.
Yeah.
And
Charlie, he don't write so good. How
as a time saver, as to give you a base, it's always easier to edit something and
Absolutely.
to do the
it's
raw,
easier to not start with a blank piece of paper.
than to do the raw creation. So there is some value for for people in their workflow to depending on what we're trying to accomplish.
So we may be assimilated. Thank you so much.
Question. Frustration level with our teachers, with our students using this because they are using it. Is there a frustration level out there amongst the teachers trying to figure this out?
Randy, that's a great question. I can't answer that as I stand here today. I haven't had any teachers coming to me, like especially I would imagine this would be in our high school, our advanced composition, our English classes and things, and saying, or social studies class, like, these kids are just handing me in plagiarized stuff. But that's also, I think, if we start to get that frustration, that's where we need to look at, okay, why are we asking for demonstration of competence in that format or in that way from our students? How do we change what we're doing so that they're demonstrating that they've learned the competencies, they can produce what they want, they're demonstrating their understanding of the core essential knowledge that we want. But it's not maybe just the 4-page essay, because I know they can put 5 keywords in and spit it out. How do we check for that learning? So I think that's going to be part of our conversation.
And how long is it going to take for us to catch up to the kids and what they're doing?
Always the hard part, because they're not scared of this stuff. Although our younger teachers that are coming in are less scared as well. Like it used to be, oh, I might break it. No, you can't break it. Just get in there and use it. So I think our catch-up curve might be a little bit less especially for our younger teachers. And I believe the other piece of it is, I've always talked about this, is parents used to come in and tell me, oh, my students or my child knows everything about tech. Well, they were game literate. They weren't learning literate and they weren't productivity literate. So there's different types of literacy within, these tech domains as well. And I think that's where our teachers need to be. They need to be learning literate. How do we leverage this to amplify learning by infusing this into my instruction?
And are they?
I think more and more, yes. Compared if we backed up and went back 5 or COVID and everyone was forced to move online, it jumped us 5 years forward in that sort of 18 or 24 month, because you could no longer ignore, you had to embrace it. You couldn't say, I'm retiring in 5 years, I'm going to use the photocopier. I'm going paper, because that's a huge transformation took place.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. See you. Okay, moving on. new and revised and removed and exciting administrative procedures.
Thank you very much, Trustee Bowman. Just moving to 6.4, I do have to comment though, I would have to say that just the presentation tonight is just such a tribute to what the work of our staff, the work that they do in terms of whether it be international ed or whether it be technology or whether it be taking our little learners outside. It's quite incredible the diversity of our educational program and experiences in Calgary Valley School District. So moving on to our exciting administrative procedures, I would have to say it is rather exciting because I think that the staff at our district leadership table have worked really hard to really make some headway around our administrative procedures. And so right now on page 7, you're going to see that we have removed some, we've added some, we've revised some. The first one, AP 240. We have removed it. It is around student counseling services, and we have removed it because we have job descriptions and postings that clearly outline the role of student counseling. AP 261, educational trips out of province and country travel. This AP was updated to reflect current practice. It really has outlined more clearly and explicitly the work that had to be done around student out of province and country travel. AP 302, this one is admission of international students without fees. And this was reviewed and updated again to reflect current practice. And really it's all encompassing, which includes students from out of province. And so we did a lot of work around that because students out of province do have to pay fees. And so it was updated in that regard. Refugee students, AP 304, that is captured in AP 302. So we are removing that. And then lastly, AP 562, transportation of students and field trips. It was revised. It now is a collaborative event between a transportation manager, our principals, and it allows them more flexibility, but there's also a focus on safety as well. And so I want to bring those to your attention so that you're aware of those, and they do go out to all of our principals and vice principals around these provisions, around APs.
Thank you. Any questions? What happens if a refugee shows up at your door with no paperwork or very little or not enough?
Our fabulous principal of international education works very, very closely with how to actually receive that student to provide integrity and ethical approach to how do we navigate that. And I also know that she would work with the Ministry of Education and Childcare because often we will take those students in until we get the paperwork and we go through the right processes.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Classroom enhancement. Oh, sorry, Trustee Croft.
Sneak in a last question. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So some of these aren't posted on the website yet, right? So they're still coming. Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on. Classroom enhancement fund, teacher reconciliation.
Yeah, for the information of the committee, I thought I would bring how many additional teachers the Classroom Enhancement Fund is adding into our classrooms and the various areas where that's occurring. So this is a result of the restored collective agreement language that came back in play for the school district in 2016. So we are going to gain 78, or we have gained 78 teachers that wouldn't have been here with us in 2015 if we were staffing at the ratios we were using then. You can see where they are in elementary and secondary, so predominantly they're classroom based. Our ratios were really close on resource teachers and ELL as to what we would normally be putting in the absence of classroom enhancement funds. There's no claim there, but we have submitted what you see there for library, learning assistance, and counseling. So 78.09 FTE, or about 9.3 million additional dollars. So as we now have finished our staffing cycle, this is the addition, this is what the amended budget will reflect, and this is what the ministry will be updating our funding to reflect as well. So I thought I would bring it here. If there's no questions on that, I'll move on to the next item. So the next item is a mock-up of where we think our funding is going to change now that we have September enrollment count. And this was done before the ECHO was completed, so we are slightly out, or slightly high. At the end, we had projected we were going to increase by 77 FTE students, but in fact we increased by 128. So we have we're net up by 51 students. Of that 128 FTE, this may be an interesting stat for the committee. We grew by 10 elementary students this year over last year. That's really not very many. We grew by 118 secondary students, with the bulk of them being at Francis Kelsey and Cowichan Secondary. Really, it's almost a 50-50 split of those students. So we have currently the smallest cohort in our school district is our kindergarten cohort at 575, which runs about 50 less than every other grade in elementary. So that's an interesting stat. And we've been saying that, based on the birth rates that have gone down in the Cowichan Valley pre-COVID, during COVID, and we're waiting to see if they're bouncing back. So that trend with those low numbers of elementary students coming in, and these larger cohorts being in the 700s. So 575 in elementary, but 700s in grade 11 and grade 12. As they move out, we really are going to either see our enrollment start to stabilize or decline. It really depends on the in-migration to the community. But just thought I would enhance that information a little bit and show you where the funding is likely to change. So we had 54 students up here in this analysis. It's actually 51. So we're going to be slightly down by $86.25 per student, or about $30,000. So 441 is what those additional students are going to generate, 441,000. But the big dollars coming in are in the areas of level 1, 2, and 3 special needs. So I'm going to be asking for some additional support based on that swing in enrollment over projection, with a motion on this agenda to pass forward to the board. Where we did decline was in English language learning. Which went down actually to 270. Again, my numbers were pre the audit or pre the ECHO check, but we did go down from an estimated 308 to 265 on ELL. So roughly $1.3 million is going to be coming in for unique student needs, and I've left the rest of the estimate the same. So you can see that we're projecting somewhere around 1.7 million as being the shift in funding when we get our final funding announcement at the end of November, or actually, no, it won't be November, it'll be December. It's usually the Friday before the winter break at 4 p.m. The gift the ministry provides to us. So that's very good news. We're in a very good spot of growth where it's not so rapid that it becomes challenging around space. I've shown you that our growth is 10 in elementary. We have more space in secondary typically for that growth to be occurring there. But it's enough that it generates some additional funding to support the school district. So it's not so far huge growth where we need to put in portables and additional classroom space. We're also not declining. It's just kind of this nice spot right now this year.
Just in regards to the increase in our special needs students, is this new designations, or is this students coming in with particular higher needs?
To Chair, that'd be more specifics than I have.
Okay.
But I suspect it's probably a combination. But we don't have a lot of growth, so I wouldn't think that we would have 56 additional designations off 128 students. It's typically about 14% of our students are designated. So if you look at that as a revenue show, and that be designations as a whole, not just funded. The funded designations be a smaller percentage. It's probably a combination of 128 students, but then those are at the higher grades where they normally are already designated.
Yeah, that's what
so
I was
probably new.
Curious, yes. So then we're probably getting more students designated is what I might be guessing. I'm guessing.
I'll just add, I don't know exactly the detail as well. I'm sure I have a staff member in this room who does. However, I would assume that there are a number of assessments that would need to occur to ensure that students do become designated if indeed they need to. Plus the language around 2 categories changed throughout the years. And so the work that inclusive learning has to do around those two categories, students with learning disabilities, as well as students who would be under the category of autism. Every year we have to actually do a vet through those to make sure that they actually meet the 1992 language. And so there's a lot of work that gets done. And I also think that we're also working with our partners really well, our First Nations partners, and we have those new assessments that were also put in place because this board did add additional dollars around those assessments over the last 2-3 years.
And I remember there was some extra time in the summertime put in as well for those assessments.
Do we know why we've increased in secondary? Like, do we know the stories of why kids are coming? Are they moving into town, moving away from the private systems?
Not yet. So the budget, as we always say, is dynamic, and it gets set at a certain point in the year, which is May for the first budget, and typically February for the amended budget. Many things that we do are formula based or come from a collective agreement, like the number of teachers. The board doesn't have decision-making ability over the non-discretionary teachers. We typically use ratios for noon hour supervisors, for clerical, but we don't really do that with education assistants. It's based on the needs of that particular student group. So what we do know is we've been up by 56 students here, which are going to generate about 1.4 million just directly related to those students. And we're here with an interim ask to add in 12 positions or 9.43 FTE to support those students. We are roughly usually running about a 3-to-1 ratio of an education assistant for every 3 funded designations, but we also know that with those students, there's going to be more IEP meetings, and we'll be needing to make some adjustments to the budget there as we move forward towards the amended budget. So we're here as an interim ask before we do the amended budget to give some authority on staffing some new positions to meet the needs of these children. And there's a motion here recommending that the committee recommend the board approve the addition of the 12 education assistant positions for a cost of $576,000.
Trustee Schmidt.
So moved.
Trustee Croft, all in favor? Motion passed.
Thank you. The next item that we have on the agenda is the whistleblower policy. And I'm just going to move the page down. This is a requirement of the Public Interest Disclosures Act. It's new. The board are required to have policy in place by December the 1st. The reason this is here now is to move it forward to the board meeting, the next board meeting, which would allow that to be in place. Policy is what we'll do. So what we will do is we will have a whistleblower protection policy. How we do it will be part of an administrative procedure that will come to the next BEBC meeting in November, so that both steps would be in place for compliance in December. So you're seeing a very high level document in front of you here, which just really covers the legal compliant piece that the board know that they have to put in a system for employees and trustees to report in good faith wrongful or unlawful conduct without fear of retaliation or reprisal. So it's a mechanism for basically bringing forward any of those concerns in a manner that we're going to set out in the admin procedure.
Questions, Trustee Croft?
So if you can clarify for me. So this policy might get developed a little further as we go on the journey to write the procedure. Okay, thank you. And then my follow-up is, how does this interact at all, or do we have to consider how this interacts with the duty to report as well?
Duty to report policy or admin procedure?
It's actually an admin procedure, yes. Thank you.
Yes, this is probably would be utilized by everybody, and the duty to report is our own internal staff requirements.
Mm-hmm.
I don't,
Sorry.
you go. You first.
No, I was just gonna say, I was gonna bring us towards the motion, but I was interrupting you.
I still don't understand why we do not fall under the provincial whistleblower policy. And, you know, I'm thinking about it, I mean, they have, all school districts have their own policy, and every provincial entity all the way down has to have their own policy. Is that the way it works?
That is the amendment to the Public Interest Disclosures Act. Previously, we didn't have to have this requirement. We could have had it in place, but it wasn't required. It wasn't a legal requirement. It is now that we have one in place. And I think there's lots of different ways to do this as well. Or some organizations are putting this over to a law firm that they may have contracted to be the recipient of the information and to conduct any of the investigations. Some are going to be doing it internally. So I think they're giving us that local ability to have the autonomy over how we carry this work out.
And how are we going to carry it out, or is that still the TBA?
That will come with the admin procedure at the end of November.
Okay. We have a motion on the table. Board of Education Business Committee recommends that the Board of Education of School District 79 adopts policy 26, whistleblower protection. Trustee Croft, Trustee Schmidt, all in favor? Motion carried. And highlights from the October 17th, 2023 Advisory Committee meeting. Trustee Croft.
Well, it was great to hear from our advisory members that school is underway after the initial flurry of September startup. And the bulk of the conversation was about not only opening the new Cowichan Secondary, but saying goodbye to the old Cowichan Secondary. And there were a lot of great ideas that came up about that in terms of consulting our community and various creative ideas about, I don't want to say celebration, but sort of closing off one venue and one set of memories and opening up to a bunch of new memories in a new facility. And so there's lots of sharing on that. And I suspect there'll be much more to come as planning progresses.
Thank you. With that, is there any other business? None. Motion to adjourn. Trustee Schmidt, Trustee Lise, in favor. Thank you very much. We will see you in a couple of weeks.